Hi and welcome to our channel. This video is in collaboration with Mace Model Assembly. He's also building a Sherman, so pop over to his channel and have a look at his video. It's linked below. Today I'm building the Asuka Firefly VC kit number 35099 in 1:35 scale. When building a Sherman kit, one of the most important things to do in my opinion is to add cast texture to the required areas. On this kit it's the transmission cover and the turret. I've added some reference pictures from Prime Portal. I'm using AK Interactive cast texture medium, and I'm going to try to replicate the mapping sort of texture where you've got raised bits as well as the overall texture of the turret. The easy cast texture is water based and I apply it with an old paintbrush. I also ensure I have some clean water in a small pot and some kitchen roll to clean my brush off. I apply a thin layer in a stippling motion, making sure I avoid any of the areas of detail I need to keep, like raised panel lines, wide marks and nuts and bolts. I also ensure I keep a cotton bud handy so I can wipe away any of the areas where it's unrequired. I'm drilling through the turret with a pin vise where the lifting loop goes, as I'm going to replace it with a wire one which I'll make later. Once the entire turret is coated, I set it aside to dry for approximately 10 minutes. Once it's dry, I take a soft sanding stick and knock back the texture, removing any of the high peaks. I'm doing this as I'm going to be adding more texture to it later on. I remove any of the unwanted easy cast texture from areas where I don't need it. Once I'm happy with the result on the turret, I get some more of the easy cast texture and add acrylic paint to it to change its colour. This is to differentiate the two layers, as I'm trying to replicate the map-like structure on the cast texture from the reference photos. I apply this second layer in the same way, except I just place it in areas where I require it, not all over the turret, just to create the map line. I move around the turret, allowing the areas to dry that I've done, and then go back over them with a second layer until I'm happy. Once it's dry, I knock it back again with a soft sanding stick until I'm happy with the finish. I also apply the cast texture to the transmission cover in the same way as the turret, ensuring that I avoid the cast mark numbers on the actual transmission cover. I also want to texture the upper hull to make it look like rolled armour texture. I do this in a similar fashion, except you apply a thinner layer and remove the majority of it with a soft sanding stick, leaving a slightly dimpled surface. With all the texturing done, I can move on to the construction. The hull is a multi-piece design and highly detailed. I start by removing all the pieces I need for the hull construction from the sprues and clean them up. Then I test fit them. If they all fit properly, I tack them with Tamiya Extra Thin, fast drying, and go back over the edges with normal Tamiya Extra Thin. The hull construction is quite straightforward. The instructions that they supply you are very easy to follow. I've built a couple of these before in the past. The only complaint I have is they are slightly over-engineered. The suspension on the two I've done previously had it was working suspension, and they gave you a sponge to put in it. It was really hard to put together. It did work, and it's good for dioramas. This kit had the same suspension, but they gave you plastic shims, but it was just as hard to put together. I do wonder if it's worth the effort, but once you've actually built the kit, it is well worth it. It's very satisfying, and they are very good kits. You also get blanking plates for the bottom of the hull where the tracks end, so the wheel arches basically, which is a nice touch. You don't always get that on cheaper kits. This isn't a cheap kit, but it's not a really expensive kit. It's good value for money for what you get, I think. You get lots of choice on the build options with this tank as well. The suspension itself comes with two different bogie types, cast or non-cast road wheels, three different drive sprockets, and different skid plates to go on the top of the bogies. The tank I'm building at the moment is from the Irish Guards, and the reference picture I've got from an Osprey book depicts a tank with two different types of wheel, the cast and the non-cast, which I'm doing on this particular kit, and it looks quite nice. A bit of an option and some variety. After the lower hull, I move on to the transmission cover, which again you get a choice of two, the one piece or the three piece. I've done the three piece one. The actual bolt mounts are double sided to add the detail, so you've got to put, for each one you put two pieces together. They've got location pins, so it's quite easy to put them in the right place, but it's another nice touch. Once the transmission cover is completed, I attach it to the main hull. It's quite a nice fit, and again the bolt detail where it mounts in real life is highly detailed, and it's a separate piece on both edges, so the top and the bottom edge. And the actual transmission cover attaches the way that it would in real life, so you could actually leave it off if you wanted to do a diorama with the transmission exposed, which is also a nice touch. You also get quite a bit of Photoetch for this kit. Here I'm adding the mounts for the side skirts. I also used a Voyager PE set for this tank to replace some of the kit parts. I also had to scratch build I think it's an aiming sight. It's like a piece of metal that sticks out the top of the turret. I used some of the Photoetch fret to replace that because I'd used it on another tank. I dropped one and lost it. And that actually turned out quite well, to be quite honest, so I was quite happy with that. I just move on through the instructions, making the kit methodically, making sure all the parts I remove are nice and clean and free from any sprue gates. There's lots of small details. It's quite an intense build. Not intense, but it does take a lot of concentration, and it does make you wonder why you bother sometimes. But like I said before, once you've completed the kit, it is well worth it. Here I'm adding the side armour, which I also textured earlier. The rear plate was an absolute nightmare. Loads of little builds and sub builds. I think apart from the suspension, it was the worst part of the build, but it does look very good once it's done. But that's it for the build video. I will cover the turret in more detail in another video because I'm doing some Hessian netting and some other things to the turret, so I'll cover that in a future video. But I hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching. I'll leave you with some photos of the finished model after the build, and the next video will be the painting video. Please feel free to leave a comment, like or subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and thanks again.